The views on a Breath of Fresh Air podcast reflects the parties involved, and we encourage you all to use it as a conversational tool that will lead to personal studies of your own.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Welcome to a Breath of Fresh Air podcast. Here with your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz Gay. As a young person, Christianity can be so foggy, like smoke in the mirrors and so unclear. But we're here to bring you a breath of fresh air. Oh wow! The glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. This is so amazing. But now, I can't even go inside. How am I gonna fix this problem?
Moses.
The Book of Leviticus. I know, it's a touchy topic. This book has gotten a lot of bad publicity in recent years, and its actual purpose gets misconstrued. A lot of us have questions. What is the purpose of this book? Why is this book in the Bible? In this episode, we are going to delve into the Book of Leviticus, give it an overall view and discuss this book, and see why this book is in the Bible and how relevant are these laws today and what was the purpose of it. Please be blessed and enjoy, and as always, do your own research and leave a comment below. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Breath of Fresh Air. Even before we get into anything, we just want to take care of a few housekeeping items. One, thank God for bringing us through another week.
Amen.
I mean, like, for me, this week was stressful, and I think a lot of people just underestimate the rest that God gives us on the weekend, especially the Sabbath. Like, the day of rest is just so powerful. So, thank God for bringing us through another week. And then I just think a lot of people just don't give God thanks and praise enough. So, bing, that's done. Praise God, we made it.
Amen to that. Wait, I just want to say something.
Oh, go for it, bro.
I've been seeing a lot on social media. Has nothing to do with relationship, with religion. Has nothing to do with religion. But people say often, if you don't pick a day to rest, your body will do it for you. Or if you don't pick a time to rest, I guess your body will do it for you. And like, to me, I'm just like, wow, if only someone with infinite wisdom would have given us this game. You understand?
Yeah.
Tell us to take this time to rest, or take some time to rest. If only.
If only the person who created the universe and created us,
understood that.
Handcrafted us, formed us from the earth.
Right. And because he intricately handcrafted us, he would probably know about the pros and cons to being in this body and what it would take to sustain,
Mercy.
He probably would know that. But what do I know? Just kidding though. But I just wanted to say that because from a healthcare perspective, like that's often considered, bro. Like you could work yourself to death, like literally type of situation. You could work yourself into sickness, and that's one of the beauties of having a time to rest. Just some food for thought right now.
Amen. And amen means, just let it be. So housekeeping item number 2. We appreciate everyone's viewership, the comments that we've been receiving. But if you guys just do us a quick favor, I know we usually say this at the end, but a lot of people don't listen to the end normal times because who listens to the credits?
I don't listen to other people's credits.
we understand, so we don't take it personally. But if you're listening on a streaming platform, please, I guess, what is it on Apple? Rate and follow and leave a comment or rating and stuff. If you could do that, we appreciate that. Google Podcasts, Anchor, leave a comment on that. And also, even if you're listening on a streaming platform, if you do not follow us on Instagram and YouTube, we really appreciate the follow on Instagram and the subscription on YouTube and a comment and a like on YouTube. It does a lot for our podcast. It helps us to reach more people. Kazi, you want to say something?
No, I just want to say, please subscribe. Please subscribe. If you listen to us regularly and if you have not subscribed yet, please do so. Not saying that I'm not even asking you to listen more then you want to like continue to listen as you please. But at the same time, there's certain benchmarks that we need to accomplish in order to keep our page running and active. So your subscription, your like, your share, it really does a lot for us.
And then also too, if you just listen, I mean, if you don't follow us on Instagram too, like one of our series, Fresh Air Facts, you only could find that on YouTube and TikTok. Haha. So you don't get that on the streaming platform. So we also release the skits individually on YouTube as well during the week. So the skits, like the skit that's going to be right before this episode, that's probably going to drop a couple of weeks after this episode too on YouTube. So on YouTube, we have a lot more activity going throughout the week. So just food for thought. We'd appreciate the love and the extra comments on the videos and even some of the stuff you're listening to while you're in the streaming platform. Comment it on the video on YouTube. We want to build a community of people who can discuss God together through comments and probably through some of our social media pages that we're working on more on a website, but in the works.
Yep.
So now, probably from the title of this episode, you know what this episode is about. So we are going to tackle the book of Leviticus, the third book in the Bible. And yeah, so me and Kazi, we was going through for honestly a couple weeks when you really think about it. Even while we were in Exodus, we were thinking about Leviticus because I mean, everyone knows the cat's out the bag. Like, we know what Leviticus entails. We know when people think about Leviticus, they just think about a boring book. I mean, just to say it plainly, just think about a boring book with a lot of rules and regulations, what a lot of people say aren't valid today. And so we were just trying to think of how we're going to tackle this book. And then the book of Leviticus don't really have stories per se.
Yeah.
And going through Exodus, especially some of those last episodes, we were like, yeah, it's a little bit rough.
It was hard for me to go through that, like to analyze that. You understand what I'm saying? Because a lot of things are straightforward. It's just saying do this, do this, do
exactly.
that. And it's just details on how to do that.
Exactly. So what we decided to do this week is we're going to tackle the whole book of Leviticus. So strap on tight.
Yep.
But we're going to do an overview and then we're going to delve into different aspects and have discussion on the book of Leviticus versus how we were going through and then having a discussion. So we're not going to get into everything, but like we always say, we encourage you to do your own research. If we say things that you disagree with, message us.
Please do.
Comment on YouTube. Like, to me, the whole purpose of this podcast was to one, keep it real, and to two, iron sharpening iron. We're all growing together. We're all wrestling with the word of God together, helping each other out to better understand it. So, yeah. With all that groundwork being said, anything I forget just from the intro before we get into it?
Only thing I want to say is it's the third book of the Bible, right? So if we was studying this book and literally we don't know anything else, approaching this book, there are certain things that are going to be expounded upon later on in the Bible, which we are privy to. But at the same time, we can't definitely give a specific answer or reasoning for a lot of these things. But we will give an analysis of this book, and from there, that could spark more conversations, and we could get to it.
All right, so just for a recap on how things ended last week. So last week, reading from Exodus 34, so even before that, we know the children of Israel were freed from Egypt. They went to Mount Sinai. God gave them the 10 Commandments. They built the golden calf. This is like the real Cliff Notes version. Like I said, go back to the previous episodes or read Exodus for yourself to get a better understanding. But they made the golden calf. God sent Moses back down. Moses went back up. And then they also, God gave them instructions for the tabernacle. Everything meticulously in its place. And then the last few chapters of Exodus ended with, everything that God told Moses about the tabernacle, Moses told the people, and they built the tabernacle. So now I'm going to read from Exodus 40:34. Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Moses could not enter the tent of meeting because the cloud had settled on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. So that's important right there. After they built the tabernacle, the glory of God filled the tabernacle, and we now see Moses could not enter the tent of meeting because the cloud had settled upon it. So now, this is just the preamble to the book of Leviticus, because those two verses right there from Exodus 40 has a big part to play in the setting of the book of Leviticus. And so Leviticus, we get into like what books mean and what it actually means. So Leviticus means and he called. So the Leviticus itself means and he called. And interesting enough, just how Exodus kind of hinted to what the book of names meant, Leviticus and he called. We see in Leviticus, now I'm going to be saying Exodus a lot. In Leviticus 1 verse 1, the Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the tent of meeting. So now we see in Exodus, Moses was outside the tent. And if you just take away verses and book titles, it literally still reads like a complete narrative. Like when Exodus ends, you see, okay, you were just read, Moses was outside the tent.
Yep.
And you're like, okay, this makes perfect sense. And the Lord's calling Moses from outside the tent. Yeah, because he was just, the tent. They just finished the tabernacle. So like Leviticus is just a continuation of the same story. Hence why it follows Exodus.
Right, and then Numbers is going to be the continuation of
Numbers is going to be continuation.
So it's like a trilogy.
It's like exactly. So I guess since we're doing Leviticus this week, you know what's coming next week. Spoiler alert. And so now, just like an overview for the purpose of the book of Leviticus now. So now we see Moses could not go into the tent. And the natural question is,
why?
Why? Like we
You
heard,
just built the tent, you were just in there.
literally we're just in there. And so now we see the Bible says the glory of the Lord filled this tent. And now something I just want to bring back to your memories too. Remember when God first appeared to Moses in the burning bush? What did he say? You could answer that.
Take off your feet. Take off your shoes.
Take off your shoes. Yeah, sometimes when we just be like, we don't know if the person actually asking a rhetorical question, they gonna answer it themselves.
Take off your shoes because you are on holy ground.
Bing. And so now that holy ground concept is what we're going to start exploring here in Leviticus. And so now the holiness and the glory of God. Now we see God himself is dwelling amongst the people now. Mm-hmm. But now is these issues that the children of Israel start wrestling and grappling with. We can't live in the presence of God in our unclean state.
So, all right, true. And what is unclean and why are they unclean, right? So I just want to preface with this understanding, and we touched on this a few times, but now it's like God and the Israelites, they are turning over a new leaf, right? So now God is basically saying, I'm taking our relationship to the next step, right? But in order for us to do that, we have to get closer to each other. But there's only one problem. You can't come to me with your shoes on, essentially, right? So while they were in Egypt, there had just been 400 years of not knowing anything to do with God. When it first started, they probably had some inclination of God, but as years progressed, they started to conform with the Egyptians naturally, and then also they became enslaved. When Moses simply asked Pharaoh to let them go and worship, and Pharaoh was like, "No, just turn up the work. They're idle." You understand what I'm saying?
Lazy.
They're lazy. Like, so think about it, dude. These guys were not allowed. They did not get the Sabbath off.
No.
You understand? And that's why God emphasizes the Sabbath so much. And not only the Sabbath, but literally he have to walk them through doing offerings and stuff. Let's think back in the book of Genesis. Do we record God ever even breaking down how to do offerings? Only thing we know is Cain and Abel, they was already doing the offering, right? And these are like in between the line things. Because the Bible don't come out and say, oh, God, tell them, oh, you have to do this lamb, da-da-da-da. But at the end of the day, Cain did not shed any blood in his offering, which is why God did not accept that. So now here it is. The Hebrews, the Israelites, they have already been so accustomed to Egyptian laws and customs that the Lord had to literally break down to them everything that has to be done. And part of what they had to be instructed on was how to live and how not to defile yourself, aka how to take off your shoes. You understand what I'm saying? And so that was to your point as to, I don't know if you used the word defile or use.
It was holy, but like
Yeah.
even like piggyback off what you think is what you were saying just now too. Again, is like God is holiness. Like we talked about this in I guess a couple episodes ago, but God is love, God is peace, God is long suffering, God is love. I said that already, but God is also very holy, and so now the holiness of God can be a very good blessing, but in your unclean state, it's almost a curse.
Yeah.
Because it will consume you. As we're going to get in Leviticus and see.
Yeah.
So now, the book of Leviticus was essentially God showing the Israelites how to coexist with him. How even in your unclean state, here are what you need to do to come back and be clean. Here is the pathway to present yourselves before me. So essentially, all the book of Leviticus was doing three things. I know we talked about this before, but it was one, well, not really for Leviticus, but we talked about these three things, attributes of God. It was his justice, because the wages of sin is death. So in all these sacrifices that we're going to have a brief overview of, you're going to be reminded of God's justice, because each time you kill this lamb, you're like, yo, I deserve to die. But guess what? You're simultaneously reminded of his mercy. I deserve to die, but I'm not the one dying. I'm not the one paying the price. And simultaneously to that, you're reminded of his grace. I'm getting life when I don't deserve it. So right then, in the book of Leviticus, you're seeing examples of God's grace, mercy, and justice towards the people of Israel, because the price still has to be paid for the death price have to be paid for your sins. And so that's kind of how the book of Leviticus is set up towards the people of Israel. And then it's something that me and Kazi discovered too, is like the book of Leviticus is pretty symmetrical, and it each half mirrors each other. So, and when we get to this episode, who knows? You might see this on the screen. You might not. If you don't, forgive me. But Leviticus starts off with, so Leviticus has, I guess, 7, 8 main movements, depends on like how you look at it. But you have two partial, like the Leviticus starts off with like rituals. I think I have it written down. So you start with like sacrifice rituals. So you're going to see like the sacrifice of the first grain, the sacrifice of the sin offering, and that kind of stuff. But these sacrifices are just saying thank you and sorry. We'll get into that. Don't worry. This is just a brief overview. After that, you have rituals. Then you get into the priests. You see Moses and Aaron sanctified as priests. Then we get to a nice story that we're going to talk about in detail, so I ain't going to spoil it right now. But you talk about priests. Then after the priests, you talk about, we wrestle with the concept of purity. After purity, right in the middle of the book, the Day of Atonement.
Yep.
We're going to talk about that more in detail.
Dive in the middle.
But then after, we're going to talk about that more in detail. But then right after the Day of Atonement, guess what we talk about again?
Holiness.
Moral purity, essentially now. So Kazi said holiness. So we start wrestling with the moral purity of the Israelites. And after that, we talk about priests again, and we start to see why this priestlyhood was so important. And after the priests, guess what we come back to? Rituals, feasts. We're going to talk more about that. And then the book ends with Moses giving a charge to the people, which we'll get into. So, I'll let Kazi kick it off.
Which chapter?
Anyone. I guess we'll start with the rituals, so we can start off with chapters 1 through 7. The grain fellowship, the burnt offering, any of those stood out to you?
I can be real with you, bro.
You want to jump straight to the rituals on priest story?
No. We can talk about this. We can talk about this, right? But all of these things was kind of like super repetitive to me.
Yeah, because like I said at the end of the day, so like these were saying, okay, I'm gonna give you a concept, right? God was saying, I bless y'all with your livestock and the food you guys harvesting. Anyone see how God was really blessing because they harvesting food in the desert? But I ain't gonna put no shine to that, right? Because I'm like, but what you know is growing in the desert.
Right. Cactus.
Like, see, that's a common fact where people just missing or glossing over,
Yeah, I ain't pick up on that.
Like, bro, they had food growing in the desert. From what TV is showing me, because I've never been in a desert, so I'm showing you my ignorance. I've been to like forests and stuff, but I just know nothing really grows in a desert.
Right.
So that was a side tangent, but God's saying, I'm blessing with your ox, your cattle, and your greens or whatever. So God's saying, guess what? After this, I just want the first. And now we see with the grain offering, God was saying, all unleavened bread. And we're going to get into why it's all unleavened bread in a minute. But God's saying, all unleavened bread, you're offering me this as a thank offering. A simple thanks. Because granted, doesn't God deserve our thanks?
For sure.
Like everything we have, we owe to God.
See, and that's the thing, bro. Like the sin offering. All right, so the thank offering, it's like certain offerings would just deal with grain and
the grain and fellowship. Yeah,
right. Certain things, bro, and that's why like when Cain did not have like a lamb for the sacrifices, like you really was just being disrespectful to God. you know. And literally the fact that they was doing sacrifices, not to even go back to this, but the fact that they was doing sacrifices means that they had an understanding of the sacrifice and why you're doing this, right? Because it ain't like they just pick it at random, where God literally telling you, you get here in Leviticus, he's saying you get this type of lamb, or, you know, this, you need to share the blood there.
Undefected lamb.
Undefiled, like, you understand,
yep.
like spotless type of thing. And, excuse me. So just to understand why it was so bad for Cain, like, Cain come there with plants and stuff. What that's supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
In this book, they talk about a scapegoat type of thing.
We're gonna get into that too, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yup, a banana is your scapegoat, bro. Like,
I mean, and like just to paint the picture a little bit better for you, because like you saying, like, you know, Cain just come with it. So Cain was saying thank you, but he wasn't saying sorry.
Right.
At the end of the day.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So the offers. So literally, right? You come in. You have sinned, right? Mm-hmm. But you come in with the thanks and all the. I'm trying to say basically the offerings that didn't involve like remission for sins and stuff like that, was like plants and stuff, and you come in with that. So you essentially was like, yeah, thanks God, XYZ, bro, God, I love you. You know what I mean? You cool, but you ain't asking for forgiveness, bro. So it's like kind of a prideful way you was coming to God, like, so you was coming to God sideways, like, and like to me it makes sense now, because like you say earlier, how this lamb is showing us the grace and the mercy type of situation. Something is going to die because the wages of sin is death.
That's the justice.
Right. You see what I'm saying? It's not going to be me. It's this lamb. It signifies the lamb who is coming to die for us.
Amen.
Type of situation. And it also signifies the fact that we have somebody to come in our stead and take this payment away from us, or take this consequence away from us type of situation. But yeah, but overall, like when I look at these, like to me, they was kind of like straightforward too. Like, you know, use this for that, you know, peace offering, purification, like, you know,
yeah. So
various types of offerings.
The rituals were really and truly chapters 1 through 7.
Mm-hmm.
So now we get into chapter 8. We start seeing Moses ordain the priests.
Yeah.
And so we know from Exodus, the priests were going to be Aaron and his sons. Why? Because they were from the tribe of Levi.
Yep.
And if we go further back in Genesis, we know the priestly linehood was going to be the tribe of Levi, from when Jacob blessed all of his sons.
Yep.
Check our previous episodes, shameless plug.
And so they continue the trend. You understand what I'm saying? And Moses made this very clear. And we also saw in Exodus where they have held, excuse me, we also saw in Exodus where they have responsibilities and they've been doing their responsibilities. And also in Leviticus, they continue to outline the responsibilities of the sons. And so of the priestly clan, I should say. And Nadab and Abihu, they was the oldest sons. You understand what I'm saying? So they had most of the responsibility. You know, they had heavy responsibilities to do. And it also goes into depth of their exact, the order of things they should do, like the exact procedure or protocol it takes, and who is qualified to actually do these things.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we're going to get into this priestly section. So I'm gonna just start off from Leviticus 9, verse 24. So we see, so now, just to paint the context. So now, after this, Aaron and Moses already, like, you know, ordained Aaron and his sons to be the priests. And they offered, like, the first sacrifice. And we see fire came out of the presence of the Lord. I like how they paint that. So when you see, like, come out of the presence of the Lord, because remember, the altar was in the tabernacle now. Moses and Aaron, those were, like, in the tabernacle offering the sacrifice. The fire came out of the presence of the Lord and consumed the burnt offering and the fat portions on the altar. And when the people saw it, they all shouted for joy and fell down. And so that imagery that I just want to paint before we get into Nadab and Abihu, those guys, right? So now we're seeing the people like, oh, okay, guess what? The tabernacle is working. Not I kind of cringe when I just use that word, just not working, but okay. They sacrificed it. God accepted it.
Yep.
Because just to paint the picture, remember, the golden calf still happened. These people were still on shaky ground, kind of. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Still on shaky ground. So now that you've seen the joy and adoration they have for, like, you know, the Lord has accepted our sacrifice. The Lord has accepted our temple. We did good.
Yes, they followed everything to the T.
To the T.
You know, and it. So it's like if someone say you do this, and that, and it could work. But it's a foreign concept to you, right? So you walking through it and you doing it, and you're like, I'm not really sure if I'm doing it right. Da, 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 da. With them, they know for sure they did it right because a flame came from heaven, and this is a similar thing with Abel.
Came out from the presence of the Lord.
Right.
So, go for it.
No, I just want to paint the picture here that this was a very important task faced on them, because not only was it their sin offering, but it was like sin offering for like the camp and like for their people. You know what I'm saying? So this was a heavy task. So like they were like the religious leaders and had the responsibility of such for the entire nation.
Yeah. So, Leviticus 10. Aaron and his sons Nadab and Abihu took their censers, put fire in them, and added incense. And they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, contrary to his command. So fire came out of the presence of the Lord and consumed them. So, it's a paint picture. So they in the temple now. So remember, we got the holy place and the most holy place. So this fire that consumed the offering and this fire that consumed them ain't even come from like, in my mind, it didn't come down. It was just coming from the holy place. Like, y'all acting up. I don't know why you said sound effect. But, so Lord consumed them and they died before the Lord. Moses then said to Aaron, this is what the Lord spoke, what he said, among those who approach me, I will show myself holy in the sight of all the people and I will be honored. So now, you're like, hold up. What did they do? Again, go back to 2 episodes ago, or last episode, might have been 2 episodes ago. God gave specific instructions on the incense they had to use and how they had to use this incense. So now you see they took their own fire that God already had he already had an altar for incense, and God already gave them fire to use for this incense. So they took it upon themselves, saying, you know what? We could disregard what God say, and we are going to do this our own way. And you see God was like, this is not happening.
Nope. And it was like, I didn't know how, I don't know the timeline of these things, bro, but like the Lord spelled this to Moses multiple times, bro, like in great detail. We going through this twice. The first time before he come down to see the golden calf, and then he reiterate like what needs to be done. You understand what I'm saying? Remember, bro, when we was talking about the altar of incense, they say it have to be this wide, like, you know what I mean? Like the Lord give specific instructions. And he also was saying that you need to dress them up in a certain way. You know what I mean? I can't remember the word they was used, but so
ephod.
They could,
The ephod?
No. He say something to say like dress them this way so that they could be like, I don't know, like empowered, or like it's something to say like so they could like really appreciate their job type of situation, or they could be set apart. So these guys, this wasn't a playful thing they was doing. This is very serious, and now we can see how they took this lightly on this day. And obviously it had never happened before because they still alive. You understand what I'm saying? So one day they just come through and they just was like, I ain't going through this intricate way of doing this, bro. I could just come through just regular, like do some regular fire or something. You know what I mean? And it didn't work out for them.
It's like they took for granted that they were constantly in the presence of God. So we go back to this concept of holiness, and we see how in their unclean state, in their sinful state, they transgress God's instructions.
Yep.
And we see God instantly was like, I can't have this. You guys are dying. And what's funny now, we see right after that, Moses said that to Aaron, like, I will show myself holy. And you see God say, in this place, I will be holy and I will be on it.
Yep.
Hey, this ain't no play thing right now. This is the presence of God in the holiness, in the holy form. So it ain't, it's like the burning bush in their midst. You got to come here, you have to sanctify the space.
Remember, bro, before Moses gone to Egypt the first time, an angel come to them, right? God's wrath was, I don't know, ignited for Moses. He was about to kill Moses.
Right after the burning bush.
Right after the burning bush, bro. Right after they had this long talk and he understood his mission, his assignment, God was about to kill him. Why? Because he did not fulfill the covenant that God put in place. AKA, he did not have one of his sons circumcised. And God basically was saying, bro, we need to be on one accord. We need to be as protected as possible. We about to go to war right now. And you ain't covered up. You ain't doing everything you have to do. So that enraged him because, like, you know what's right from wrong, bro. Like, this is a serious thing we about to do, bro. And y'all coming around playing. How you taking atonement for everybody's sins and like how you doing this on behalf of everybody and you ain't doing it the right way. You doing it wrong for everybody, bro. Like,
and see, that's the charge that is put on people who lead in the congregation or lead in the flock too. Like, there's an extra responsibility in you guys right now. You guys have been ordained for this purpose. You know what I'm saying? You guys have been ordained. You got the holy oil still on you. You can't be doing certain things right now.
Nope.
And oh my. Yeah, they had a tall order and they fell short. I'm just say that.
Yeah.
So moving on, we see Aaron remained silent. So Moses summoned Mishael and Elzaphan, sons of Aaron's uncle. Wouldn't that be Moses' uncle too?
Sons of Aaron's uncle. Yeah, so it would also be Moses' uncle.
I'm like, because we started thinking so hard. I was like, oh, I guess I might be wrong.
Yeah.
And they said, come here, carry your cousins outside the camp away from the front of the sanctuary. So they came and carried them away still in their tunics outside the camp as Moses ordered. Then Moses said to Aaron and his sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, do not let your hair become unkempt, and do not tear your clothes, or you will die, and the Lord will be angry with the whole community. But your relatives and all the house of Israel may mourn for those destroyed by fire. So the reason why that was so important right there too is like, you would go into a state of mourning because think about it, Aaron just lost his sons, and these other two guys had just lost their other two brothers. But Moses is like, no. Y'all still anointed by God right now. The holy oil is still on you. You can't. And plus, you tearing this tunic? No.
No, bro.
So and he's saying, guess what? So everybody else, all your other relatives here, they could mourn. They could enter that state of mourning, rip their clothes, have their hair and cap and everything. But y'all still in this anointed task by God. So you guys are not going to be afforded this luxury.
Yep. And because like you say, they used to. It was a way they mourned. Like they dress a certain way, they act a certain way. Like, you know, you still have to this thing still have to get done, bro. Like these guys ain't do this yet. You understand what I'm saying? You anointed with all, so you have to do this on behalf of everybody, type of thing. You know.
And then we see Moses then the Lord said to Aaron. It's interesting too. The Lord said to Aaron, you and your sons are not to drink wine, other from men to drink whenever you go into the tent of meeting, or you will die.
So you think Nadab and Abihu was drunk? Why they do that?
I think it's kind of implied that they were a little bit merry. The heart was a little bit glad from wine, like how David said.
Yes, and I agree. I feel like that's what lead them to do this, because like when you are inebriated, it messes up your perception. Yeah,
that's a good word.
Yeah. So like truthfully, like and it kind of. Bro, you just don't, like, you ever been around someone who was intoxicated and they shouting and they ain't know they shouting and you like, bro, you loud, bro. Like, you understand what I said?
Yeah.
Because that's because all your senses ain't in talk right there. You know, so they literally could have thought what they was doing was chill. Like,
their rationalization was a little bit off.
Yeah, and that's because of that.
And you know, and honestly, too, just think about it too, it gives you an extra level of courage that you wouldn't have if you were normally thinking.
That's true.
So they would have been like,
liquid courage.
What's the worst that could happen?
Exactly.
We die?
Start. Because what I'm saying is they had never done this before, bro. They had never, because they're alive. They was alive this whole time. So we know this the first time they've done that. And they was drunk. We don't know if it's the first time they was drunk, but we know it was the worst time they was drunk.
Yeah.
Because it cost them their life for sure. And then God had to come down and say, all right, John. All right, let me just, I didn't know I had to say this, but let me just say it. Don't do this drunk ever.
Again.
You see what I'm saying?
Intoxicated? No.
No.
You gotta be drunk. Don't do this intoxicated.
Don't do this.
Your judgment needs not to be altered.
So, see, truthfully, and like it went without saying, you know, but it had to be said. I have to tell you all, do not be drunk. Do not be drunk. Later on, when we talking about alcohol and wine, I can bring this back up, but I can use this as a time. You know, we have a lot to cover. You see what I'm saying?
And so then we say, this is the lasting ordinance for the generations to come. You must distinguish between the holy and the common, between the unclean and the clean, and you must teach the Israelites the decrees the Lord has given them through Moses. Moses and Aaron and his remaining sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, take the grain offering left over from the offerings made to the Lord by fire and eat it prepared without yeast beside the altar, for it is the most holy. Eat in the holy place because of your share and your son's shares offerings and made the Lord onto the fire. So I have been commanded. But you and your sons and your daughters may eat the breast, wave the thigh, and present it, eat them ceremonially place. So going back to those Exodus laws. And then we see in verse 16 of chapter 10, when Moses inquired about the goat of the sin offering and found it had been burned up, he was angry with Eleazar and Ithamar, Aaron's remaining sons, and asked, why didn't you eat the sin offering in the sanctuary area? It is most holy. It was given to you to take away the guilt of the community, making atonement for them before the Lord. And so we see the importance of this, what they were doing too. Moses saying, like, even y'all messing up right now. Y'all had specific instructions, and aim like you're just doing something for doing its sake. What you're doing has a very important meaning and a very important purpose. Moses say, you know what I'm saying? It is most holy. It was given to you to take away the guilt of the community by making atonement before the Lord. Since its blood was not taken in the holy place, you should have eaten the goat in the sanctuary area. And so now we see Moses saying, guess what? Like, this offering is for the whole community to get, atone for their sins. You not doing this, essentially holding everybody else in this state of non-atonement, for lack of a better word, or in Levitical terms, keeping in this state of uncleanness.
Yep. And this is the thing though, because we about to get to clean and unclean type of thing.
Perfect transition.
Cleanness and sin ain't the same thing.
Uncleanness and sin.
Yeah, uncleanness and sin ain't the same thing.
Yeah.
But right now, y'all ain't even helping people atone for their sins right now. You understand what I saying? And so, like, on top of that, like, it's one thing to be sin or whatever, but then it's another thing to be unclean. There's certain sins that coincide with just being unclean. But like we'll see where it could be like a bodily fluid you could come in contact with, or a rash or something like
mold.
that. Right, mold that could make you unclean. But no matter what, you can't be in the presence of God, or you and God. Everyone needs to be on one accord because we moving with God essentially.
And even to go off of your point too, so like as you said, uncleanliness doesn't equate to sin. And so now we see, okay, now we're going from the priestly here to like the purity and uncleanliness part. So now purity and clean and uncleanliness and impure, almost like they whatever go hand in hand. So now you could be unclean and God gives you the steps to get clean in about 2-3 weeks. So now it's like, okay, your steps to become clean again, to become back in the presence of God, because like you was just saying, you keep all this in. But the purity, you have your period, woman has this every month. So and then like the uncleanliness was decided to symbolize of death. And death cannot coexist with God's perfect life. So that was the symbolism there. So like when you was clean, you represent God's life and His pureness. And that's why all of the symbolisms of impure and uncleanliness, you look at all of them are kind of related to death and some type of correlation to death in that kind of way. So that was the symbolism there between the cleanliness and the uncleanness. And that's why God was saying, guess what? So now it goes back to this whole issue that Leviticus was really addressing. In your unclean state, my presence will be a detriment to you. I want to live with my people just like they're calling back to creation. So now I'm giving you the steps. So you can identify when you're unclean. So there shouldn't be a guessing game. You should know, currently I'm in an unclean state. I can't come before God. Or I'm in a clean state. I'm good to come before God and go in His presence.
And this is very important information, because I had never known this. I just found this out last week. Right? Bro, imagine you moving through God in the city or the just in the neighborhood, in the tribe, And
Going 10 block B.
right. Just go on, just, if you're in Mount Sinai, you're going too far. Like type of situation, right? But let's say you're moving through, right? And you have a rash. You want to get close to God or whatever. But if God didn't tell you, bro, you're gonna die if you come around me, then I don't feel like that would be righteous. That wouldn't be righteous. Like this book, Leviticus, is a heavy book, bro. There's talk about a lot of stuff, bro. But its context is super important because literally, because he could have just leave this out. If this don't apply to us no more, this didn't have to make the Bible. You understand what I'm saying? But at the same time, like the fact that it happened, it's like it's super important that he address these things so that you don't even be in the dark. Hey, anything that have to do with bro, and this could go further, bro. Anything with mold, you know what I mean? Rash, certain skin disease, bro. Animals who eat dead animals.
Bing.
You see what I'm saying? And like, bro, literally, bro, I don't know the nature of all of these animals, but I can tell you, bro, like stuff like. Anyway,
we get there.
Yeah. So just put a pin on that. Like death is one of the things that definitely will make you unclean in all its forms, and that's why these things are in the Bible for sure, because you have to understand this context. And back again, these people have to be molded, no pun intended, and because they just now leaving Egypt, so they have to understand the nature of God. It's certain things that maybe not had to been explained in Genesis because these guys were already on one accord with God from the beginning. You know what I mean? It wasn't too much of a break off from God's lineage. Like it wasn't a time when people just was living and just not regarding God. But these Hebrews, they just came off of that. So now God have to basically break this down to y'all and teach y'all. And essentially that's really what's going on in Leviticus, especially up to this point.
And so now from chapters 11 through 15, we get into a lot of the stuff Kazi just mentioned, the rituals. This is like the first rituals portion of the book. So we get into like a lot of the spiritual rituals, the ritual purities what we're dealing with. So now like the three main things you see really addressed: contact with bodily reproductive fluids, having a skin disease, touching fungus or mold, touching the dead itself, and eating impure animals. And so now you see why. Think about it now. We just glossed over this, but we see why. What happened when God killed Aaron's sons? Moses called their cousins to come take them out of the temple.
Yeah.
Realized Aaron and the two other brothers were still in the temple, but you know why they couldn't touch them? They would have become instantly impure in the presence of God, and they would have died. So Moses said, guess what? So now, because guess what? As soon as the cousins touched them, they have to go through these same rituals and go through these rituals. Purification. That's the word I was trying to get. The purification stuff to come back and be clean. But Aaron, they didn't have the time to go through that.
No, because they still have to atone for the sin. They still have to go through all of this because they the only priests.
Exactly.
You understand? Like
so I was just painting that because like that just clicked to me too. Like because I was like, wait, why the cousins gotta do this? But duh.
They couldn't do it, bro. Like who, bro? Who was? Because they already trained to be able to do these sacrifices.
I can't touch them.
Yeah, you feel me? So yeah, that's true. That's true. So
I mean, so any of the rituals you want to like stand out, or you just want? I mean, because like we kind of just covered it, like infectious disease. That's like chapter 13. Mold.
Food was 11.
Yeah.
Food is an interesting one to me though, because all right, if we had never read the New Testament, it would just end here. And we know that Daniel didn't eat the king's meat, so it obviously stayed true beyond this portion of it, right? But then we have situations in the New Testament where they address clean and unclean foods. You understand what I'm saying?
I just laughing, right? Because remember, we saw an interesting video this week with a monitor lizard, and the monitor lizard is actually mentioned right here in Leviticus 11:29. So that just...
I never heard of a monetarism before this week, bro. I'll just say it. I only know these things by their name. Like, you feel me? Like Komodo dragon and stuff like that. I know, like, they have a characterization, like these types of monitor lizard.
Yeah,
So
but
when
Komodo
you say-
dragon and monitor lizard different, though. I just want...
No, but when I look at Wikipedia, they say,
see him?
yeah, bro, that's the type of monitor lizard.
Oh, interesting. Okay, anyway, continue.
Bro, damn, that's what tripped me out, bro. You feel me?
Okay, so back to the clean and unclean.
Right.
Back to the clean and unclean.
But Komodo dragon would be unclean.
Yeah,
'Cause
I mean,
they're-
but when you see what I used to watch a lot of National Geographic growing up because I was just always into that kind of thing, and I just was never into like reality shows. Neither here nor there. But when you actually look at what a monitor, they literally have like they literally eat like decaying flesh too. They almost like vultures. So it's like,
And so, growing up, bro, my bad. I don't know if he was finished on that.
I was just gonna say like, why you want to eat that? But go for your point.
True. All right, that's all right. That's good. But growing up, I always have to explain to people why I don't eat pepperoni pizza. That's probably the most common one. Bacon was another one. Pig. You feel me?
Pig.
And to some people, it being in the Bible, that just wasn't enough. You understand? So I essentially found a better way to say that, bro. When people be like, "Oh, why you don't eat this? Why you don't eat that?" I say they scavengers, just like that. That held more weight than saying because it's in the Bible. But then, truthfully, the two are coinciding. If they wasn't scavengers, we more than likely would have been able to eat them because they ain't have nothing to do with the dead type of situation. You know what I mean? Maybe I don't know. But watch this. The fact that if you could break it down to people and say, bro, these things eat a bunch of dead stuff. They clean up the earth. This is no bueno for your body. Just period. People understand that, bro. That's why veganism is like going crazy right now. Like a lot of people just are very health conscious, you know, because of all of this stuff. Because like
I just thinking about all the mushrooms I eat, Dread.
No, I like mushrooms. I like mushrooms a lot.
Fungus.
Yeah, they are.
I know. Shake my head.
Right, but at the end of the day, these things hold true, bro. Like a lot of these things that are in this book right here, that's saying don't eat. This guy's still talking, thinking about mushrooms. But and speaking of pizza, right? Like don't give me the pepperoni, you can give me the mushroom pizza any day. You know what I mean? But anyway, most of these animals here, bro, they don't have good effects on your body. Period. The ones that are considered unclean that you don't eat, they don't have good effects on your body. I have cousins who know for no religious reason, bro, they don't eat red meat because of the way it impacts their bodies. They eat red meat. They get the flu more. You understand? They might, you know, like even if you don't eat red meat and then you get to eating red meat, your stomach might start hurting and all that. Like they just have a higher quality of life without this. I know people who have converted to veganism, and I know someone who struggled with like insomnia and stuff like that, bro. She converted to this and it helped her to focus, bro. It helped her condition a little bit. You know what I mean? And some people who like, they might have this disease that the doctors say is uncurable. They go to a plant-based natural diet and it reverse the stuff that's going on. And we are aware that, bro, even because of sin, bro, like everything is depreciated, bro. Animals carry certain diseases, XYZ. You know what I'm saying? So it's like Leviticus talks about the ones that are clean and unclean, but even the ones that are unclean, they are more hazardous to your body than not. Now, is it a sin? So this is something I really didn't want to talk about.
And in the context of Leviticus too is more so like if you eat these just unclean, it's just like having a period.
Right.
You eat it, you just go through the purification, and in 2 weeks you clean again.
Right. And like to me, like I'm just like, whoa, bro, because I don't want to be like and just for context, Earl and I have been reading the book of Galatians
all week.
It's because we working on another Bible study, right? And it's so interesting the way
God had us read Leviticus and Galatians in the same week. And that's...
Bro, it's like, it's crazy because it's like a...
Night and day.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like a paradox, bro. Like
night and day.
What is going on? Like one side in the New Testament is saying, hey, like these laws, like you can hold them to the T, but it's not going to save you, bro. It's not going to get you into the kingdom of heaven. And we can see that personified with the Pharisees. The Pharisees, they were even going a step further. You pick corn on the Sabbath to eat, that's a sin. They coming at the creator of the universe, right? They coming at God, Jesus, right? And they telling them, bro, why do y'all sin? And then he putting them in their place. Oh, hold on, but if your ox fall in the, what you could do? You could save it or what? And they was convicted by that, like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So they couldn't argue with that. Later on, I think it was something where like the Pharisees, the disciples didn't wash their hands before they eat, or maybe they didn't fast. It was one of the two. I don't think, but anyway, I can just progress the story. Jesus turns to the Pharisees and say, hey, it is not what goes in you that defiles you, but what comes out of you. You understand what I'm saying? And so he was basically trying to tell them, bro, y'all can eat all the clean food in the world, bro. What's in your heart is not clean. The clean food is not making you clean. You understand what I'm saying? Because like it's a hard issue at the end of the day. And so when it comes to like stuff in Leviticus, we understand why God is saying not to do it. And we do understand the benefits of following Leviticus. No lie, bro. Like, if someone want to argue that you don't have to follow it or not, I ain't here to argue with you, you know. I can definitely tell you the benefits of not doing these things. You understand what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, is this going to keep you from heaven or not? You understand what I'm saying? And I think that's the point what Jesus was making. What you eating ain't going to keep you from heaven. You understand? It's what in you. It's what already in you before you put something in you. That can stop you, you know? But back to the topic, Leviticus. Do eating these foods would make you unclean. And at the specific time, you could not coexist with God in His presence while being unclean. You would have to go through a purification thing. And I like to use the mold thing. I like to use the period analogy. I like to use rashes because these are three things that happen without. We don't have control over these. You don't have control over mold happening. You understand what I'm saying? This is nature. You know, if something get wet for too long, it's gonna mold. Like that's just how it is.
That mildew is gonna uphill.
Right. You feel me? You could break out in hives because of
against
fail.
a plant, poison ivy, get a rash.
You understand what I'm saying? All of these things are gonna make you unclean. But the period, this is something that happens.
Woman with the issue of blood.
You understand what I'm saying? Like you're just gonna be unclean, and it's like, did God make women to be unclean? Like, you feel me? Like, you made women to have this thing that makes them temporary unclean, but is uncleanness a sin? No, it's not.
It's not a sin.
You understand? Is this a bad thing? Not really. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can't coexist with God.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is the thing. Death is a natural thing. Can we say death is a bad thing?
And just like we said, too, you have the cousins of Neabadabai who had to take them out, but they know when they touch those dead bodies, they become unclean.
Right.
But you know, it's a saving grace again. God really telling you how you can come out of this unclean state. And that's the beauty of the book of Leviticus. Exactly. The beauty of the book of Leviticus. I think too much people try to use Leviticus as a condemning book. But they don't really take it for what it is. It was a book of grace. It was a book of showing you that, like you said, God didn't have to tell you when you were unclean. He just zap you down, just like Moses. Like, take off your sandals, bro. Take them off. No, seriously, take them off, because you come any closer, you will die. Yeah. It's a warning.
And bro, and if you read that text, he was like, Moses, like he was shouting at him.
Because Moses coming to inquire, like, why this bush burning? God's like, no, bro, you come any closer.
Whoa, chill.
You come any closer, you will die.
Yeah.
See, and to me, it's kind of said about the book of Leviticus. That's the beauty of the book of Leviticus. The beauty of the book of Leviticus is showing God's grace. And it sounds so weird because there's a book full of laws, essentially, and one or two little stories, but it's a book showing that, hey, I give you the ability to identify when you're in this unclean state, because I want you to get to this clean state so you can live in my presence and I can be with you guys, because I want to be with my people. And that's the beauty of the book of Leviticus. I never ever realized until we had to study this in depth, because Leviticus was always like Leviticus.
Because truthfully, you know why Leviticus was so messy for me? There are things that are easy to, like, to me, bro, growing up, not have eaten any, quote, unclean food, like only eating kosher. I think I'm using that correctly.
It's kosher. The word's kosher, yeah.
Bro, it's not, bro. If someone, bro, you could put, no lie, you could put a buffet of shellfish right in front of me. I'd wonder, I don't know how that tastes, but I don't have a desire to taste it. You understand what I'm saying? Like, that's easy for me. Shaving the side of your head, though. When the Bible say don't shave the, bro, I think it's, what is it, Leviticus 17 verse 28 or 27?
No, I think it's Leviticus 19, so that's in the second half of the purity.
All right.
Yeah, we gonna get there. We gonna get there. But that's a good point, though.
All right, I can put a pin in that. So let's progress now.
Let's progress. All right, but yeah, that's a beautiful book of Leviticus. So like now to keep on going. So now in the middle of the book, God did something wonderful again. He gave them the Day of Atonement.
Yep.
And what's the Day of Atonement, you might ask? I know some people probably asking, probably not you, but you over there, you just probably asked what's the Day of Atonement.
Yeah, I see you.
I see you. Yo, can't wait till we get cameras again. But so for the Day of Atonement, essentially, in an overview nutshell of these two chapters, so this is in Leviticus 16 and 17, in the middle of the book of Leviticus, God said, okay, during the course of the year, right? Some people might have some sins that they didn't offer sacrifices for. You know, you don't want to come out and say you commit adultery or you going down to so-and-so tent in the middle of the night. You ain't want to come out and say that so you could be like, well, I might just eat this one. So God's saying, in God's infinite wisdom, He was saying some sins might be missed during the course of the year, but guess what? On this one day, we're going to have a day of atonement for the whole community. Almost of a catch-all of sorts, if you may.
Yep.
So they were to bring two lambs, two goats or whatever. There was a lamb and a goat. It was two of the same animal. Because here's the thing. Lots would be casted. I think it was two goats. Two goats, because lots would be casted over these goats. And this is where the term scapegoat.
Oh, yes, yeah.
This is where the term scapegoat comes from. I didn't even know it was a biblical term. I thought it was just something we just say, oh, that's the person's
It's
scapegoat.
literally a word, bro. Like, it's literally a term that we've used, like, as an analogy.
For centuries, bro.
But it's become a word of its own, but it's like it's like an analogy, it's like a metaphor. We use it metaphorically.
Yeah, but I'm like,
because we don't, like, if I say you a scapegoat, you're not literally a scapegoat. You're just metaphorically a scapegoat.
God literally said this would be a literal scapegoat.
Yeah.
So now when the lots were casted, right, one lot would be the goat that would bear the sins of the whole community and would be sacrificed on the altar of burnt offering. But the second goat would, all the sins would be placed in that goat, and that goat was to be banished in the wilderness. None of the Israelites could kill it, and none of they find it dead. You know, you got wild animals in the wilderness. They can't eat the meat because that meat, that goat is embodiment of all the sins of the whole Israelite camp. So, yeah, so it's just, I know I probably repeat myself now, but it's just, you know, beautiful, again, in God's infinite wisdom saying, I know some of y'all gonna still try hide y'all sins because we human and we sinful. And then let's just be pure, raw with it. We are sinful beings. So God's saying, I know y'all gonna lie.
And then reading the book, bro, reading Leviticus, some of the things what could get your jam up, bro, like knowing something and not speaking on it, XYZ, bro, like
you're like, woof,
bro, like a lot of these is like hard situations to be in, to be honest with you. Like,
when we know Adam a perfect man was like, I'd rather just be with my wife.
take the L, bro.
Yeah, so you can imagine simple beings too, and you got the devil, because you think about it too, this God's chosen people on earth at the time. Like, these were the people who really worshiped the most true God in the highest concentration. So you know the devil was trying to run rampant through that camp.
Yeah, he was there.
Because y'all in the land of Canaan, I done got them. I done got them.
He probably ain't have to worry about no one else in the world for real. Except Jethro them.
Yeah. But it's mostly y'all right here. So you know the devil really had his attention focus on these children of Israel. So now that's the Day of Atonement. God was like, you know, I give you all this day to catch all. And so now we get into the other section of purity in Leviticus 18 and 20. And these were some of the things Kazi was mentioning earlier, some of the other.
This word is get caliente.
So again, so now, like I said earlier at the beginning, these chapters deal with your moral purity or the moral purity of the children of Israel. And so this is where, I mean, let's even get into it. Chapter 18, the title on that is literally
unlawful sexual relations.
Bing. You can't get no more than that. Do not have sexual relations with your father's wife, that you should would dishonor your father.
So we saw someone who did that already.
With your father's wife? Oh yeah.
It wasn't technically his wife, but it was like his wife's servant type of thing.
Yeah,
Reuben.
yeah, Reuben.
And so because of that, he
sneaking the night at Billa.
Yeah, you understand? So he forfeited his birthright.
With your brothers.
And so he also didn't have a tribe. So we have all of these tribes. Reuben. Bro, imagine that, bro. Imagine all of your brothers have these tribes and it's like a big lineage, but you have to join someone else's tribe. Bro, that's shameful. You understand what I'm saying?
Like, you still descendants of Reuben. They're kind of, but they ain't.
Yeah, but it ain't count.
Tagging along.
Yeah, like there's tag-alongs really. Well, they ain't no real people. Like, that's not to say they ain't real people, but they ain't a real nation type of thing. And so here we can see where it's like a law that already was a like kind of a law, just unspoken type of thing.
No one is to approach any close relative to have sexual relations.
And that's why I mentioned where we see something and it was bad. But now I want to say that this is something that is prohibited, right? Prohibited?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is prohibited, but we've seen before, and it was not painted as a bad thing. They say no relatives, right? Or I say no close relatives. Okay, any close relatives, right?
Any close relative.
So
And if that didn't suffice for you, that's what he going on to say,
no sisters.
No.
Oh no, your mother and
Father, mother,
Yeah.
father's wife, father's daughter,
So,
or
bro-
mother's daughter, whether she was born in the same home or elsewhere.
Bro, you want to have a real conversation, bro?
Father Abraham.
That's all I want to ask you. That's all I
Had
want to
many
ask.
sons.
So is that a close relative, bro? Your half sister?
Man, but it just say
It literally says that, right?
just say mother's daughter or father's daughter.
Okay, so
it don't matter.
right? And so what about this?
It was no ambiguity.
Right, you understand? It was straightforward, right?
Uh-huh.
So another thing I wanted to mention too, though, it's like, is your mother's brother's daughter
Hey,
not a close relative? That's your first cousin. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying?
that'd be pretty close.
Yeah. So
And go for it.
no, I'm just talking about Abraham and Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So I'm not here to say if this is right or wrong, because it could have been right, and then God could be saying now at this moment.
And then now too is because, and we hint on this when we was talking about the lineages, or we was talking about Adam and Eve. When early in the day, when it was closer to God,
Their genes.
was less defiled.
Mm-hmm.
Centuries later, you realize you're only living to see 500 and 600 and think no more.
Yeah, and then at the same time, you gotta understand. God tell them specifically, do not
Do not do this now, yeah.
or do not intermarry with the with Canaanites and stuff like that. What other options you had besides your relatives?
But see, and see now too, is like, it ain't just a small group of y'all, it's millions of y'all now.
That's what I get now.
Big, yeah.
So now you have options, and so now you just saying, bro, don't do this.
Yeah.
And they coming out and saying it. You
Yeah,
know what I'm
like-
saying? So I ain't coming here to say what's right or wrong, but I'm just trying to show you where I'm just trying
Times
to
are changing.
Yeah, I'm just trying to speak to the person who is like gung ho on Leviticus, and I'm just trying to use other places in the Bible where this thing was seemingly permitted, because we don't see we don't see God discipline them for doing that at all. You understand?
Back then, what all options did you have?
Let's think about Cain and Abel, bro.
Just think about Noah.
Right,
Who else y'all gonna marry? You gotta marry your cousin.
right, like his
The-
grandchildren,
yeah,
basically.
his grandchildren.
Yeah. Shem, Japheth's
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
They don't have no bro. Like because we could guess with Adam and Eve,
Mm-hmm.
and some people could say, "Oh, you never know if he didn't make other people." Blah blah blah. We know for sure it was only like 8 people on that boat.
Literally.
You understand what I'm saying? And so he ain't no other options at
Mm-hmm.
that point, And so now we can see where God's saying, "Yeah, don't do that."
Yeah.
And so it ain't even like, bro, like this, like the craziest thing to do or XYZ. It's just like God is just telling you, don't do that right now, because literally, don't do this, period. Because literally, this is gonna separate you from me. And this the point. This the point I kind of make it. You could remember I was saying earlier, I know somebody who's struggling with health problems or something, like, and going vegan, like, help them to focus XYZ, right? You can eat the unclean food, but just understand that not eating the unclean food, or even taking a step further, not eating meat and all these things, would help you to focus more, which could help your relationship with God. If we look at this metaphorically, these people couldn't get close to God because they was unclean. You understand? So it's certain things that we do that can stop us from kind of getting close to God. It ain't even like a sin or not.
And even to take it one step further too, when people really like, even in the Bible, when you see people really trying to get close to God, what were the main things they used to do?
You mean like being an Nazarite? Oh, you mean fasting?
Fast.
Yeah. Fast. Yeah, you withholding from food even, like. You
Full
understand?
period. Jesus, 40 days.
40 days. And literally, you remember, it was disciples was trying to cast out demons or whatever, right? And they couldn't get it out. And when Jesus do it, they was like, why couldn't we do it? He says some things you only can be able to accomplish through prayer and fasting, because that's when you get that close communion with God. And so, like, to me, we can look at the book of Leviticus in a metaphorical sense too. Like, it ain't even about a right or wrong, bro. It's like, these things will get you closer to God. Following these things, you're not going to get further from God if you follow Leviticus to the T. No lie. Granted, you don't have to do these these things now because like Jesus was the lamb for the sacrifice. This was only like the predecessor for Jesus type of thing. But it's like if you follow these concepts and stuff like that, this ain't gonna get you further from Leviticus. That ain't what we saying at all. But my thing is like we can't sit there and just be like, bro, oh, don't do this because of Leviticus, because truthfully, these things were very specific to what was trying to be accomplished during this time. You understand what I'm saying? And Rachel, this one thing where we see in the Bible, bro, they couldn't keep this law. If this was a law implemented
earlier.
They couldn't keep this law earlier. You understand? Thanks for helping me clear that up. Yeah. But now God is saying y'all could keep this law. Excuse now. So
and then too is like just going back to things we've even logically now today you see why if you have children with a close relative, genetic defects, genetic magnification, for lack of my scientific medical terminologies, but now like you're gonna compound the defects that you have both ourselves. Now, if we spread our gene pools, your partner might cover up your defects, you might cover up your partner defects, so your child still come out normal. But when you have sex with someone close to you, guess what? Your DNA and their DNA same symptoms, the same problems you got, they got. The both of y'all got the recessive sickle cell gene, your child probably gonna have sickle cell disease. Because now both of y'all have it, your child probably gonna get it. So now God's saying, the world's become quite diversified enough. The children of Israel, y'all are very diversified. You don't need to come with your mother and sister household. You could go down to the tribe of Benjamin if you're in the tribe of Joshua. And okay, yeah, cool, we good. I guess we go to the tribe of Dan or Naphtali or Manasseh. Go out, spread your spread. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't got to do this. Leviticus still got some other stuff too. So now, so where we at now?
So we could go to 19 if you want. Various laws.
Money. Look at Leviticus 18:22.
Oh boy. Leviticus 18:22. Do not have sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman. That is detestable. But you know what? This is also mentioned other places in the Bible too.
Okay, yeah.
Outside of Leviticus. You understand what I'm saying? And right? But I ain't gonna lie, but I don't even know if you could even go into a deep dive off of that.
No, but so now we go to 24. This kind of ties back into kind of what our points too. We see, do not defile yourselves in any of these ways, because this is how the nations that I am going to drive out before you have become defiled. Even the land was defiled, so I punished it for its sin, and the land vomited out its inhabitants. But you must keep my decrees and my laws. The native born and the aliens living among you must not do any of these detestable things. For all of these things were done by the people who lived in the land before you, and the land became defiled. If you defile the land, I will vomit you out of it as well, of the nations, like the nations that were before you. And so we see in God's showing, like, y'all doing these things also going to set y'all apart.
True, and really, that's one thing God really trying to get these people to understand. Like, it's been a setting you apart thing from the jump. I setting you apart so you could know that y'all has served the real God and they serve the fake God. And because of that, y'all have to move like y'all serving the real God. You can't move like you serving the fake God, because then people ain't gonna believe it's true. They could think it's a fluke type of situation. They could think this luck type of thing. But so yeah, so I ain't gonna lie, we could kind of summarize some of these things at this point.
Yeah, because now you go in verse 19, you see it's like a harken back to the 10 Commandments kind of too, like do not steal, do not lie, do not deceive one another, do not swear falsely by my name, and so profane the name of your God. I am the Lord your God. Do not defraud your neighbor. Do not hold back wages if you hire a man overnight. Do not curse the deaf or put the stumbling block in front of the blind, but fear your God, I am the Lord. Do not pervert justice. Do not show partiality to the poor or favoritism to the great. We talk about this in Exodus. Do not go about spreading slander among the people. Do not do anything that endangers your neighbor's life. I am the Lord. Do not hate your brother in your heart. Rebuke your neighbor frankly, so you will not share in his guilt. Do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against any of your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. This way it get a little spicy. Keep my decrees. Do not mate different kinds of animals. So them ligers and stuff nowadays. Woo! Interesting. Do not plant a field with two kinds of seed. Do not wear clothing woven with two kinds of material.
Do not plant a field with two kinds of seed?
Yeah, boy.
No comment.
And so my polyester and cotton.
Yeah, bro. You gotta fix that, bro. I all cotton today, bro. Huh? Just kidding.
But like it just goes back to like some of these, I shouldn't say some, like these were how to set
Yourself apart.
the children of Israel apart.
Yeah. And boy, and that's why I ain't gonna lie. Just to be completely transparent, that's why I was scared of Leviticus. You could ask her if you care that much to ask him, but months prior, even before we even was in Exodus,
But we was talking about this from December.
yeah, we was talking about this, and I just like, man, I don't know what to do here, bro, because like, truthfully, you can see some things was like, it's definitely, this is not gonna change. Like, even how they start quoting the Ten Commandments, bro, like, do not turn to idols. That's not gonna change. Like, it's never been okay or not okay. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we can see where the eating thing later on in the New Testament, they talk about that and how they're like, bro, this kind of insignificant in terms of salvation. You know what I mean? But it's certain things where it was like, it's a commandment. You know? It's certain things where, like, even in chapter 18, like in terms of sexuality, it's certain things they mention there, but then later on, they mention how this is an abomination. You understand what I'm saying? There's certain things that continue to repeat. So, I'd never want to say blanket Leviticus and say all of this is like fully applicable or fully unapplicable. You understand what I'm saying? It's definitely for everybody to internalize and just to really just have a real conversation, like just unbiased and just not being proud in any type of way and just understand what's going on. Because I struggle with the concept of I was the guy to say, bro, everything in Leviticus is true. Like we ain't even. Because literally from you start nitpicking. Bro.
Exactly. And to like one of your big points of before parts, I just can throw it to you now since you want it. 1927, do not cut the sides of your head or clip off the edges of your bed.
I personally don't trust people who don't have a fade, bro. Not even people, young people. If you don't have a fade as a young person.
And no cap, Kazi has said this
I said this many times.
Many times outside of before the podcast was even a thing.
Bro, like not non-Bible related, bro. If you ain't wearing a fade, I just looking at you like, this is a very unique individual, but I don't feel comfortable around you. Like,
right. Just for context, one time me and Kaz was watching a basketball game, and a well-known basketball player didn't have a fade, and Kaz was like, I can't trust him. How you can trust a man without a fade?
Just a little more context. This was someone who was like a flat earther and stuff like that, and I'm just like, it makes so much sense. He doesn't have a fade, bro. Like, what you expect from this guy, bro? Like, he's not that trustworthy of a person. Like, you know what I'm saying? But like, the fun and jokes aside, to be completely honest, I've shaved the side of my head. Earl and I are not blessed with the luxury of having an opportunity to shave the side of our faces.
But I have tattoos.
Right. And so, like, this is what I'm saying. I got into a conversation my freshman year in college, and I was talking to someone about their tattoos, right? And he's like, you know what's so funny about that? The verse right before that says, do not shave the side of your head. You have the side of your hair shaved, right? And like, to me, this wasn't even like a fruitful conversation. It became more of a debate type of situation. But like, where do we draw the line? And that was my question this whole time with Leviticus. If we're going to be like, bro, everything in Leviticus is it, then I shouldn't see us as Christians mixing fabrics. You understand what I'm saying? So, I ain't trying to throw my mommy under the bus.
Oh, no, don't do it.
My mommy have a garden.
Oh.
It's multiple different seeds.
Oh.
Planted in our garden.
Yeah, but we got some sweet pepper, some onion, some pepper.
Bro.
We got a mango tree, some banana tree anyway.
My mommy's get jiggy, bro. Papaya tree. You see what I'm saying? Like, she's get creative sometimes, bro. You understand what I'm saying? And so, like, to me, it's important to understand context.
And even go show some of the context between the tattoos back in the day, too. The tattoos were almost like rituals on their bodies and stuff too. It was like pleasuring their gods that were there, and God is like, you know, y'all can be set apart. I don't need y'all to do this for me.
That's true.
I don't need no personal glorification on y'all for me. The only thing I need is, you know, the sacrifice.
And so, in the faith that I was born and raised in, Adventism, one of our fundamental beliefs is to not wear jewelry. Right? I've worn jewelry. I still wear jewelry.
I got my chain right here.
I try not to wear jewelry, but it's like, it's the idea of being set apart, being a peculiar people. So I understand and respect that. Is that fully supported by the Bible? So you see here, I make it a point to keep a score. And just off the strength that I have to keep a score, it kind of implies that it's like kind of ambiguous this time. And that's sometimes it's like flat out, oh yeah, y'all shouldn't be doing this. Sometimes it's like, but they was doing it, but it wasn't no qualm. You understand what I'm saying? But I understand if someone just come to me and say, hey, literally you doing this is gonna germinate a seed of pride and arrogance within you, I'll understand and accept that.
Bing.
And literally that's what it does for me. So that's why I even back off of wearing jewelry. Because sometimes I be feeling myself. Not even that I just want to wear it as something that I feel cool. It's like if you want to wear your favorite shirt, if you want to wear these pair of shoes,
and go for it.
You can choose to do that. But at the same time, you can't let this thing rule you type of situation.
Exactly.
Because you could have the house. It's not a sin to have a house. But if you trying to get the most glorious,
if you have in the house for all the praise and adoration,
right?
That's because we was talking about this pre-part too. So it's even the same thing with jewelry and the same thing with these earthly possessions. Are you getting these earthly possessions? And so, like for jewelry, for example, when I wear my chain, am I glorifying myself and becoming super vain? And in the sense, am I becoming a god to myself? That's where the jewelry gets. That's where the jewelry gets dangerous.
Right, and that's where it's a stumbling block. In the New Testament, they talk about if your right hand offend you, cut it off. It's better to go to heaven with one hand than to go to hell with two able hands. And that's where Leviticus comes in. If these things are offending you, literally cut it off. But with certain things where like the tattoo, for instance, right? Bro, do y'all sincerely believe that no one with tattoos will be in heaven? Just for the audience to just think about and ponder about. You understand what I'm saying? And it's like, will this prevent you from getting to heaven type of thing, right? And if the answer is yes, do not get that tattoo. Don't even think about that. You understand what I'm saying? And so like, that's the way I look at it, bro. Me, I don't even understand the relevance of mixing fabrics. This is not a stumbling block to me in any type of way. We can see how in the New Testament, the Jews and the Gentiles, they just had so much fuse, bro, because it's like, and this go back to Galatians in a sense too, because like they want the Jews was trying to make sure that the Gentiles become fully Jew in order to become Christian.
Before they even become Christian.
But the Jews had a certain type of laws because there was no Christ. They had to do sacrifices because they didn't have the literal Lamb of God, which is Jesus. But now we have the Lamb of God. You could bypass some of these things and just go straight to God for your sin offering.
And they didn't even take it one step further for like extra context. Even back in the day, they took it a step further than the Ten Commandments and what was done in Leviticus and stuff. They had their own, they had set of laws on top of that too. Like the analogy I was telling Kazi even before the podcast was saying that it's like as an engineer, I know the speed limit post on the road. This is probably bad advice, but the speed limit post on the road is always going to be lower than what that road actually could take. The speed limit post on the curve is actually going to be lower than the curve could take. Sometimes, you know, when you're speeding on the curve, you're like, oh, this actually feels solid going around the curve, but the speed limit was 35 and I'm going like 50. The curve you take more, but the purpose of the speed limit is to say, guess what? If you go this speed limit, you never have a chance of making it to what the road actually could take and actually having an accident. Right. So what they was doing with the laws back then, they had so much laws on top of the actual 10 commandments and the actual other stuff that it was becoming way too heavy of a burden for the people. And then it was just so much extra stuff.
Especially if you ain't born and raised in this culture.
Exactly. And so now
let me give you an example. So you have the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, but they also had other days equivalent to what we would call holidays,
holy days.
Yeah, holy days.
That's where holiday comes from.
Right. So they had other holy days that were considered Sabbaths. So here it is. Let's say I just moved to Jerusalem. Let's say I moved to Jerusalem, but I from let's say from the Bahamas, like there's a Gentile nation, it's not a Jew, right? I come here, I know from Sunday through Friday before sunset, I can work. No, from Saturday sunset on the 7th day, you understand what I'm saying? To whatever. Saturday, y'all get it.
You got it.
Yeah.
Sundown.
From Saturday at sunset to Friday at sunset type of thing, right? I can work, right? So I working, and then all of a sudden you tell me on December 25th, even though that fall on a Wednesday, I can't work because I break in one of the Sabbaths. I'm like, but it's too much, bro. Like, it's too much. But at the end of the day, I look at all of the people who've been doing this for centuries, and they're telling me that, no, this is just what we do. This burden might be seriously too much for me because, like, but why should... I have to make a living. Like, why I gotta sacrifice this? Like, bro, like watch this, Earl. the Sabbath is on Friday evening, right? If I tell you one day, but Earl, I ain't gonna lie, dog. I ready to kick it up a notch, bro. I ready to start off in my Sabbath from Thursday evening every week, right?
I'd be like, peace.
Right. You see what I'm saying? And I doing that, and I doing that, and I doing that, right? And then we have a new convert in the church, and I telling them, yeah, bro, this is what you gotta do, bro. This is what you gotta
Thursday.
do. You understand? Like this bro, you making things even more difficult, bro. You giving them a burden that they don't have to bear type of situation. And that's what we see the Pharisees was doing. And it's so funny because you can understand the culture of the Pharisees and the Sadducees during that time because they was doing it to Jesus. Literally the Lord and Savior of the universe, they was picking on him. They was nitpicking. Oh, you won't do this, you won't do that. And every time Jesus always had an answer for them, but they never stopped nitpicking at Jesus.
Nope.
Oh, well, if should we pay tithes or Caesar, which one? And he's like, both, bro. What you talking about? Like, why y'all trying to trick me like type of situation? And like they literally was just trying to come up with rule after rule after rule after rule. And then they trying to make it seem like you can go to hell for not keeping that, you know? But at the end of the day, when we read Galatians, it tells a completely different story. It tells a story of, yo, your salvation is not predicated on these laws. You understand what I'm saying? But then it also goes in to say that, bro, if you go and you start off in orgies and doing all this, bro, you're not going to go to heaven. You understand what I'm saying? And it's like, love your neighbor as yourself, because this is one thing that hangs all of the commandments type of situation.
And what's so funny, like we said, it says that exact same thing in Leviticus.
It does say that. And it also mentions that in Leviticus, and we can see how the Bible is like a
perfect symmetry.
The Bible
mirrors.
is perfectly symmetrical. So just consider this, right? Before Peter was about to see Cornelius, was it? I can't remember, but I think he was going to see Cornelius. I almost certain it was Cornelius, but
go for the story.
But anyway, thanks. So he had a vision that say, kill and eat, kill and eat, kill and eat.
Yeah.
And he was like, yo, I ain't never eat nothing common or unclean. And God make him do that exercise multiple times. And then he said, yo, don't never call nothing I make common or unclean, right? People use this to justify eating unclean foods. That's not the point I'm making. If Peter did not have that vision, he would have not been able to minister to Cornelius, who was a Gentile.
And that was the problem too.
You understand?
Yeah, just for context too, because like Peter, and we see this in the New Testament, even in Galatians and in Acts too, like Peter and Paul, because see, Paul was like ministering to the Gentiles. How we talk about this in Leviticus, just for context. Anyway, Paul was ministering mostly to the Gentiles a lot. Like Paul was still ministering to the Jews, he was focused on Gentiles. Peter was a Jew. So Peter was like heavily focused on the Jews. And it was a lot of pushback between, Jews and the Gentiles in that day. There was a lot of pushback between them. So Peter going to minister to a Gentile, he was really struggling with that because he was like, essentially, bro, I'm on a higher pedestal than y'all, essentially. Like, we the chosen people.
He's
why?
low-key racist.
Yeah, like, why am I going to a Gentile? Like, God, you can't be possibly giving this message to your children that's going to your chosen people to Gentiles now. Like, he couldn't, like, rationalize that. And God was saying, guess what? The Gentiles just as good as you.
And these my children.
And that was a hard pill to swallow for Peter.
A hard pill to swallow, bro. Don't never call nothing I make common or unclean. And that's my point.
And my bad.
Yeah, no, good. This is a good convo. We was tasked to read Galatians, bro, for a Bible study. To me, this is similar to when Peter in a vision saw all of the stuff when God tell him to eat, to kill and eat. But if I didn't understand that, I wouldn't have as good an understanding of Leviticus. And just understanding, bro, these laws, God put these in place for a reason, right? The Hebrews had to follow these laws, right? But these laws ain't getting you into heaven. You understand what I'm saying? You can't work your way into heaven. You understand? And that's something we see in the New Testament. But at this time, they was a few steps behind because Jesus ain't come yet type of situation. So where they was already communing with God and they was getting to see God and live around God. And these were things that they had to do in order to continue doing that, in order to stay alive in his presence. So it's like, it's a levels thing. That's why this the third book in the Bible. You understand what I'm saying? This one thing you gotta be familiarized with. Familiarize, keep it in your mind as you read and as you learn. These concepts are gonna grow and kind of like evolve in your mind for you to fully understand what this even means.
I was just gonna like piggyback off your point. Just simple context matters. It's the third book in the Bible. When we like just how I pointed out at the beginning, we see how Exodus ended, and we see how Leviticus started, and now we see as we go through this book how it's going to end. So context matters, timeline matters, and it helps you to understand the Bible as it was supposed to be written, how it's supposed to be interpreted. Granted, Holy Spirit helps guide you, helps reveal things to you as you read the Bible. And like I say, read the Bible for yourself. Don't take our word for it.
That's a fact.
I honestly pray you're not taking my word for it. I'm praying you're doing your own research. I mean, because here's the thing. Me and Kazi gonna have to answer to God for our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever we say. I mean, because God give us a ministry that we're performing out, but anyone who listens to it, because like we're still quote unquote leading people to God. And I'm saying, like, we're having a conversation, but at the end of the day, we know if anything we say lures someone away from God, God will hold us accountable for that.
That's a fact.
So even though we tell y'all do your own research, we still try to do our own due diligence. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, I got a page of notes here on Leviticus, like, just to make sure, like, certain things I wanted to touch on, certain things that stood out to me. But yeah, like, just do your own research. Ask the Holy Spirit to guide you, and the Holy Spirit revealed things to you they probably didn't reveal to us. And like I say, like, it's kind of like, we mentioned a couple of times, but it's kind of interesting that we were literally studying Galatians the same way we had to study for Leviticus. Like, what are the chances? Even when we did the podcast with Bethany Kids, check them out if you haven't yet, episode 26, shameless plug. But it was so interesting that the episode that he was able to come on lined up to be Exodus 1 that lined up perfectly with his ministry. So like, even as we've been going through this podcast, going through these different studies, different books, well, 3 books, haha. But as we've been going through these different stories and different things, we've seen how God has been aligning different things for us and ourselves. Context matters, because who would have thought that things have been lining up the way they have been? We didn't plan that. Like, we didn't plan to really be doing Leviticus this week. If we'd have stretched out Exodus a little bit longer, we would not have been doing Leviticus this week. If we had made the Bible study appointment that we're doing this weekend a little bit longer, or scheduled it earlier, both of them would have lined up this week. But God had it in such a way that both lined up on the same weekend. We couldn't have planned it any better, because I mean, I didn't really have study Galatians this week on my docket. It wasn't a part of my weekly Bible study. I don't know why I was just fumbling with that word. But that's just the way God lined it up. So, any more rituals you want to talk about?
Not really.
So
I think they get the gist.
Yeah. So now we see in Leviticus 21 and 22, we start seeing, okay, so we back to the priest. So we start seeing the qualifications of a priest, and it's essentially showing why it's so important. And just like a brief summary, the priests were God's representation to the children of Israel. So they were God's representation to the children of Israel, but they were also the children of Israel representation to God. And so we say that's why their job was so important, because you're representing God to the people, but you're also representing the people to God, but more importantly, you're representing God to the people. So now we see when they happen to buy you, why what they did was so disrespectful, because you're God's representative to the people. You have a higher task and a higher calling before God, and you're disregarding that higher task. And almost goes back into the point, not to the same level, but like pastors with the extra burden they put on us, people who share the word on a large platform, kind of like our podcast, was like, you have an extra calling, but God also puts the extra responsibility on you, and it's important, something you have to take with serious regard. And they were in the presence of God. So then after that, in 23 and 25, 23 through 25, we get all the feasts, Akazi, pardon me?
No, I was saying festivals.
Yeah, the festivals. You got the festival, well, first one's the Sabbath, no, that's just every week. There are 6 days that you may work, but the 7 days is Sabbath of rest, a day of sacred assembly. You are not to do any work wherever you live. It is the Sabbath to the Lord. And we says represent us. This is actually like the second time we talk about, the second or third time we talked about the Sabbath in Leviticus. But then the Passovers, not the Passovers, the feasts or festivals, it was 7 of them. The Passover and the leavened bread, we know what the Passover is from the Egypt. That's essentially what they're still commemorating, because remember, God told them to do this as a festival every year. Fun fact, it was also around the time when Jesus had the Last Supper too, around his crucifixion, so the Passover is around, as the common folk would call it, around Easter time, both tied to the lunar calendar. Check out episode 30 for our crucifixion episode on Matthew.
Yeah.
Plugging in all the episodes, I don't know, I remember these.
That's blown my mind. I used to get bro.
A mind palace, but we ain't gonna talk about that here or there. Passover of unleavened bread, the festival of the first fruits, the festival, the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of the Trumpets. This one's kind of interesting to me. I'm gonna just read it real quick because it's pretty short. The Lord said to Moses, say the Israelites, on the first day of the 7th month, you are to have a day of rest, a sacred assembly commemorated with trumpet blasts. Do no regular work, but present an offering made to the Lord by fire. It's just like, I'll just get, as we say, they were like holidays, as we call them now. They were holy days, but they were holy days then. Now, for some reason, we changed the Y to I and just called it a holiday, but that was a holiday. You only doing no work. Do a little sacrifice. I don't want to downplay the significance of it.
Yeah.
But you do a sacrifice, trumpet blast, no work. That's what we would call a holiday. In the Bahamas, have a John Canoe parade, do no work, holiday, trumpet blast.
Trumpet blast, all the same.
Day 6, the day of festival 6, the Day of Atonement, and then festival 7, the Feast of Tabernacles. And then we see in chapter 24, they talk about the bread being set before the Lord, the showbread, and the tent of meeting. They talk about how a blasphemer is to be stoned.
It's back to Jesus. Showbread, right? David eat the showbread, and Jesus used that as like evidence on not being fixated on these rules type of situation, but putting love above all of these rules at the end of the day. You know, because that's what Jesus' point was. Like, if you
you'll go for it, keep on
if you're hungry, you could tell yourself, "Oh, I can't even pick this corn," because the Sabbath basically ruling you. You so fixated on these rules, you don't even take care of your body, which God wants us to do. Take care of our body, which is the temple. And basically, he that's really all it boiled down to. Because he's like, David them was hungry, they eat the showbread, and y'all has put David on this high pedestal, and y'all know y'all give that a pass. You understand what I'm saying? Because it ain't about the showbread for sure. You understand what I'm saying? Because if a rule is gonna cause you to break another rule or to sin or to like deprive your body, you shouldn't hold that rule above your body or above God or XYZ. You understand what I'm saying? If a certain, like you and I, we record on this podcast on the Sabbath, right? If we were getting paid to do this would be our job type of situation, right? So would we say, oh, we can't do the part on the Sabbath type of way? If you imagine if pastors thought that, because that's their job, bro. That's work, no lie. That's their profession. But they can say, oh no, I can't work in the Sabbath, bro. What the love has to come before the law type of situation. You know why? Because God is love. That's the same thing we was pushing last episode. You know, and you know, just another little tangent.
Yeah, I didn't want to break your thought because my point wasn't that significant, but the reason why you see in Leviticus and even through Exodus, and you're going to see further on too, the reason why the bread had to be unleavened was because in Leviticus they talk about like the fungus, yeast. It's a fungus essentially. So the bread couldn't have yeast in them. So yeah, that's kind of why.
Yeah, and that's back to the death thing. That's back to the period. That's back to the rash, the mold. You understand?
And then we see the Sabbath year. The year of Jubilee, and the year of Jubilee it's pretty important. You see, in the 7th year, God pretty much said, okay, all the all the servitude you gave after the 7-year servitude, you have a year that you could actually be, you know, liberated. Go back. Everyone who had land taken from them could get their land back. Yeah, kind of stuff. It was a year of resetting. So that was pretty good for their culture, honestly. And then we get back into Leviticus 26 and Leviticus 27. So this is essentially Moses' speech. And so Moses, at the end of Leviticus, was essentially telling them they got, you know, 2 things. You could be obedient and you can live in peace, harmony, abundance, overflow, or you could be disobedient and you could live in disaster and exile. That's the book of Leviticus. A book of symmetry, a book of a lot of laws, but underlined to me, it's a book of grace in the strangest way possible. Because it's a book that God is showing to his people that no matter what, well, if you do these things and you become unclean, you're not separated from my presence forever. Here are some steps to come back and live in harmony with me.
book of Leviticus gives God's stances on a lot of issues. But it's important to understand the why behind it and how it relates to us, but also how it affected the people of the Bible. Throughout this book, we see how the teachings and instructions of God were a cultural identity to the Israelites, and here is where it all started. But we still have a lot more grounds to cover, and we'll continue to learn about God's instructions and also continue the stories of the Israelites as we approach the book of Numbers on the next episode of A Breath of Fresh Air. Tonight's episode included voice acting by your hosts, Earl Roberts and Nakhaz. Remember to go ahead and research on your own in order to get a more firm understanding of tonight's episode. And if you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. You can follow us on social media at A Breath of Fresh Air Pod on Instagram and BOFAPOD on Twitter. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next week.